welcome everyone to the daily news analysis of 30th of September 2023। तो चलिए देख लेते हैं इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल द हिंदू न्यूज़पेपर से। पहला जो है डिस्प्यूट कावेरी डिस्प्यूट CWMA अपहोल्ड पैनल्स डिसीजन पुश फॉर मोर वुमेन this time in the police, then extended exclusion, troubled water, global dispute settlement, India and appellate review, then Afghan consulate counter embassy decision to shut down, discussed India-Canada issue with Blinken, says Jaishankar, then remembering MS Swaminathan's legacy of ecological conservation, Ruijiang Zhang to receive Shastra Ramanujan Prize, then hot dry August lift core sector growth to 14-month high, then last जो है fiscal deficit this hits 36% of financial year target in August। तो पहला जो है कावेरी डिस्प्यूट CWMA upholds panel's decision। The Kaveri Water Management Authority on Friday upheld the decision of Kaveri Water Regulation Committee asking Karnataka to release 3,000 cubic feet per second CUSEC to Tamil Nadu till October 15. It also told Karnataka to make good the shortfall of 0.71 thousand million cubic feet (TMC) feet that arose during the 15-day period that ended on September 27. The CWRC took its decision at its meeting on September 26. However, the Siddaramaiah-led Karnataka government has decided to file review petition before the Supreme Court and CWMA on Saturday. It has also decided to form an advisory panel to collect data and provide advice to the government on the issue. After the Friday's meeting, which lasted nearly 2 hours, CWMA chairman Sumitra Kumar Haldar told the Hindu from New Delhi that barring Karnataka, representatives of the other basin states joined the discussion through the video conference. As for Tamil Nadu, the officiating Principal Secretary for Water Resources K. Monivhasan attended the meeting online, while Kaveri Technical Cell Chairperson R. Subramaniam was personally present in New Delhi. As the past, there was an intense exchange of views between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, while the former wanted continuous release of water and demanded 12,500 cusac. The latter referred to difficulties in continuing with the supply. Karnataka also pointed out that it was only dependent upon the southwest monsoon which played truant this year, but Tamil Nadu could fall back on northeast monsoon which would set in during the 3rd or 4th week of October. According to the data of Central Water Commission available up to September 26 this year, the realization of the Kaveri water at Billigundulu this month was 11.8 TMC feet, and since June 1, the total was 43.73 TMC feet. In a normal year, the state should have got nearly 75 TMC feet more as of now. As on Friday morning, 4 reservoirs of Karnataka in the Kaveri Basin had a combined gross storage of 59.65 TMC feet. As per the latest direction of the CWMA, Karnataka will have to release totally 5.38 TMC feet till October 15. Noting on fact-finding panel, asked whether either of the states raised the issue of sending a fact-finding committee to ascertain the level of distress in the Kaveri Basin, Mr. Haldar replied in the negative. A similar panel was constituted by the Union government on October 4, 2016 on the direction of the Supreme Court. After visiting these two states, the panel submitted its report on October 17 that year. In its conclusion, the panel did not quantify how much water should be released by Karnataka to Tamil Nadu, but it indicated that while Karnataka should appreciated the matter of protection of established irrigation in Tamil Nadu and Puducherry, the lower basin states should factor in the aspiration of the upper riparian state for developing its network. Then next they push for more women, this time in police. In a few years from now, women lawmaker will from at least 33% of the lawmaker, all the lawmaker in India. The Constitution 128th Amendment Bill 2023 has been passed by both houses of Parliament. This bill will provide for one third of total seats in House of People, the Legislative Assembly of every state and Legislative Assembly of National Capital Territory of Delhi to be reserved for women for 15 years. Additionally, this reservation will also extend to seats reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly. The representation of women members of parliament in the current Lok Sabha is about 14.4% compared to 4.9% in the first Lok Sabha in 1952. The purpose of this amendment is to increase women's participation in the policy making. However, as the amendment has caveat, experts are of the view that the earliest this amendment can be implemented is the general election of 2029, provided census 2021, which is pending, is taken up soon and the process of delimitations is carried out without a delay. Otherwise, implementation will be delayed till the general election of 2034. While there is no direct link between the number of legislators and the strength of law enforcement agencies, the number of women in these gives a fair idea about how representatives these institutions are of the society they represent. Reservation actually availability in the police. Most states have a policy to fill of 30% or 33% of the vacant posts of the direct recruitment with women in their police forces through horizontal reservation, that is, if the minimum reserved vacant posts are not filled up in each category of SC, ST and other backward classes and unreserved with women on merit, women candidates are pushed up in the list to make up the gap. The representation for women in the state armed police forces is restricted to 10%. In some states, women are generally recruited against notified vacancies after permission is granted by the government to fill up vacancies. The data on police organization, a publication by the Bureau of Police Research and Development (BPRND), shows that while the total available strength of the state police forces increased by about 7.48% in the last 5 years, that is, from about 19.26 lakh as on January 1, 2017 to about 20.70 lakh as on January 1, 2021, against a sanctioned strength of 24.64 lakh and 26.31 lakh respectively. The representation of women in the state police force increased from 1,40,184 to 2,17,026 in the same period, which is about 7.28% and 10.47% of the total available force respectively. Though the data for the year 2021 as on January 1, 2022 has not been published, the Minister of State for of the Ministry of Home Affairs informed the Rajya Sabha in February 2023 that the representation of women in the police force as of January 1, 2022 remained at 11.7% of the total state police force. According to the detailed According to the details published by the BPRND as on January 1, 2021, a few states such as Kerala, Mizoram, Goa do not have a policy of reservation for women in the police force, but women's representation in these states varies between 6 to 11%. Bihar provides for 35% reservation for women and 3% for backward caste women, but the actual number of women in the force is about 17.4%. Chandigarh has a maximum percentage of women, about 22% in the police force, while Jammu and Kashmir has the minimum about 3.3%. Himachal Pradesh has not notified reservation for women, but 20% vacancies of constables are filled up by the women, though the MHA has repeatedly asked states to increase this representation of women in the police force to 33%. The actual availability remains low. Many states do not have a permanent police recruitment board and do not have a free hand to undertake recruitment at regular intervals. Assuming that the attrition rate in the police force is about 2.5% to 3% and the annual sanction of the new post to be about 1.5% to 2%. Recruitment is done only against about 4% to 5% of the total posts. Thus, going by the past, would take not less than 20 years to increase women's representation from 10% to 30% in the entire police force. Crime data and need for more women police. With criminal law and criminal procedure on the concurrent list, the central government has made various amendments in these laws. Certain reports and statements are to be mandatorily recorded by a woman police officer. Arrest and search of women accused must be done by a woman police officer. According to National Crime Record Bureau data, about 10% of the total crime defined under the Indian Penal Code was committed against women and about 5.3% of total arrested persons in 2021 were women. Therefore, the available women force insufficient even in the dealing with cases that are related to women. Women are also needed for law and order in day-to-day duties. The Protection of Child from Sexual Offences Act has further enlarged the scope of women recruitment in the police force. It is undisputed that women can handle any assignment in a police institution. They have already proved their mental in most police duties. In a democratic country, every institution needs to be truly representative of its populace to win their trust. Efforts must be made. Police being a state subject in 7th schedule to the constitution, the implementation of police reforms remain primarily a concern of the state. The MHA began providing financial initiatives from 2018-19 by reserving 10% in the first year and 20% of the total modernization funds thereafter to the states that implement police reforms to a satisfactory level. Merging women police with the regular police was one such reform. Similarly, though the establishment of the police recruitment board was another such reform, many states were not enthusiastic about implementing this and consequently did not get this benefit. This satisfaction level with family quarters is on January 1, 2021 was only about 30%. The MHA also provided a special grant to encourage states to establish a women desk in every police station. But there are not enough women personnel to handle them in the district. The MHA also has a special provision in the modernization plan to build separate toilets for women staffs and ensure creche facilities for children in every police station, which is sanctioned thus. Efforts should be made to encourage more women to join the police force. For this, a conducive environment and basic infrastructure are a minimum necessity. A uniform police act for the entire country may help the center frame uniform standard for women police also. Every state should have a recruitment board to ensure recruitment on a regular basis. Taking a step forward, a special drive should be launched by all states and union territories to recruit more women and increase their representation in the police force. Just as the constitutional 128th amendment for women in the legislature would do in near future. Then extended exclusion with or without APSA, center should not allow Manipur situation to fester. Hill areas in Manipur will continue to be under the Armed Forces Powers Act (AFSPA) for another 6 months from October. The state government has issued a notification to extend the law's imposition to the whole state, barring the areas falling under 19 police stations in the Imphal Valley. The notification maintains the status quo on the applicability of the potent law that grant extensive power to the armed forces in notified disturbed areas in the use of force In normal circumstances, the only question that may have arisen is whether ASPA is needed any longer. However, given the violent ethnic conflict since this May between the Meiteis and the Kuki communities, the exclusion of the Imphal Valley from its purview, even while extending it elsewhere, comes across as quite ironical. The army had sought its reimposition in the Valley district as it felt that the absence of the law is hampering its operations against the insurgent groups, which may be using the unrest to gain a foothold in the state. It can be nobody's case that AFSPA should remain or its ambit is increasing. But it is difficult to avoid the question whether if at all, AFSPA is needed for some more time. Areas that have witnessed considerable violence in recent months should remain excluded. Perhaps the government's logic is that AFSPA is meant only to provide legal protection to force engaged to the in counter-insurgency operation and not those engaged in law and order duties amidst internal conflict. However, the exclusion of the valley districts from ASPA at this stage is liable to be interpreted as yet another instance of the government's partisan conduct. One of the reasons for the government maintaining the status quo on the extent of the disturbed areas is that a detailed assessment of the ground situation is not possible at the moment when the security agencies are engaged in maintaining law and order. Further, the notification says the issues of declaring an area as disturbed is quite sensitive and it may lead to public criticism and resistance. The only possible interpretation is that the fear of the displeasing the majority Meiti seems to be the core aspect of the government's policy in the backdrop of the hostility of the community towards the Assam Rifles and the Assam Rifles appeared apprehension that trucks made to resemble its vehicle may be used to commit offences in a bid to tarnish its image. The situation is rife with possibilities of further conflict. The center should not delay any further a serious initiative to bring about reconciliation between the two communities lest the situation faster and deteriorated. Then troubled waters. China Philippines should desist from raising the risk in South China Sea. The move by the Philippines to remove a 300-meter floating barrier installed by China near the disputed sea Seabrooke Shoal in the South China Sea and Beijing's warning to Manila asking it not to stir up trouble underscore how delicate the situation is in one of the world's busiest water. Tensions were between China which Tensions were high between China, which claims much of the South China Sea, including areas away from its coast, and a more assertive Philippines. In recent months, Manila has repeatedly accused Beijing of blocking its shipping vessels in and around the Scarborough Shoal, a triangular reef encircling a resource-rich lagoon that China seized from the Philippines in 2012. When the Philippines realized that China's forces were setting up a barrier blocking Filipino fishermen from getting closer to the reef, it was fully accessible until 2012. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ordered its removal at the risk of inflaming tensions with Beijing. The Philippines sent Coast Guard crew in a boat to the Seoul who dived and caught the rope that encroached the bioline. Malaysia and Indonesia, which also have disputes with China, have sent vessels to disputed water for survey at various times this year. Manila's action underscores the trend of smaller countries in the region trying to be more assertive in their maritime claims as China tightens its hold over the South China Sea. Under Rodrigo Duterte, The former president of the Philippines tried to play down its tension with China, even though Manila got a favorable ruling from an international tribunal in 2016 over Beijing's claim in the South China Sea. However, Mr. Marcos Jr., who assumed office in June last year, has taken a different approach. His administration has named and shamed China's high-handedness even as it strengthened defense and strategic ties with Washington, its former colonial master. In February, the country announced a defense cooperation agreement which provides the US access to nine Philippine bases from the previous five. In April, the Philippines hosted its largest joint military exercise with the US, enhanced cooperation with the US with the assurance from Washington that the mutual defense treaty extend to Philippine public vessel aircraft, armed forces, and the Coast Guard seem to have emboldened Manilas in its disputed with Beijing, but such actions carry risk which could lead to tension spiraling out of control. The US and its Pacific allies might get dragged into a conflict between China and Philippines, potentially turning the South China Sea into a battle theater which is in nobody's interest. Both China and the Philippines should be mindful of the risk that their actions pose to the world and be ready to engage in talks and establish guardrails, ensuring stability in their volatile relationship. Then a global dispute settlement, India and appellate review. The recently concluded G20 declaration, among its many commitments, reiterated the need to pursue reform of the World Trade Organization to improve all its functions and conduct proactive discussions to ensure a fully and well furnished functioning dispute settlement system accessible to all members by 2024. The WTO's dispute settlement system, conceived as a two-tier panel cum appellate body structure, has been dysfunctional since 2019 because the United States has blocked the appointment of appellate body members held as the crown jewel of the WTO. The dispute settlement system, with the scope for appellate review and mechanism to enforce a ruling, has issued over 493 rulings since its establishment in 1995. To put this context, the International Court of Justice has dealt with only around 190 cases since 1947. The appellate body has been crucial in ensuring coherence and predictability in ruling, ensuring confidence in WTO dispute settlement process. While the commitment expressed in G20 declaration is heartening, whether it will have an appellate process or just be one stage panel process, given Washington's continued opposition to an appellate review process remain to be seen. The US seems inclined toward the judicialization of international trade law, an approach whereby countries take back control from international court and tribunals. However, as with adjudications in national court, the appellate review process at the international level serves as an essential check on the interpretation on and application and of law and ensures consistency. On the ISDS, while the future of the WTO appellate process is uncertain, another area of international law witnessing the formative stage for an appellate process is international investment law through investor state dispute settlements ISDS, an ubiquitous component of a bilateral investment treaties. The ISDS today is the principal means to settle international investment law disputes. Till January 1, 2023, 1257 ISDS cases have been initiated. India has had a checkered history with ISDS with five adverse awards, four in favor and several pending claims. Benefits of an appellate review. A critical structural asset of the ISDS mechanism, also present in India's bids and a few free trade agreements, in that it operates through an ad hoc or one of arbitration tribunals without any appellate review. In international law, investment law, Hundreds of ISDS tribunals operating under different arbitral institutions have on several occasions offered diverging interpretation of the same treaty provision. Likewise, these tribunals have reached a opposite conclusion despite interpreting and applying the same treaty to the same fact. The absence of an appellate review mechanism has made that inconsistent and incoherent decision and legal reasoning dot the landscape of international investment law. This has caused instability and improper improbability for states and foreign investors, making the regime chaotic. An appellate review mechanism will allow for rectifying errors of law and harmonizing diverging interpretations. It will have the power to uphold, modify, and reserve the decision of a first tier tribunal and thus bring coherence and consistency, which in turn will infuse predictability and certainty into the ISDS system. An appellate mechanism will also be better than existing mechanisms such as the annulment proceedings, which only apply to arbitrations administered by the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes, an institution India not a member of. Further, such annulment proceedings can only address limited issues such as the improper constitution of an arbitration tribunal or corruption, but cannot correct error in legal interpretations. The appellate mechanism will also be superior to getting an ISDS award is set aside on limited procedural grounds in a court and at the seat of arbitration. Discussions on creating an appellate review mechanism are ongoing at the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law UNCITRAL's Working Group 3 deliberating on ISDS reform. There are several critical issues in creating an appellate review, such as what form it should take, an ad hoc appellate mechanism, a body constituted by the disputing parties on a case by case basis, or standing appellate mechanism, what the standard to review the decision of the first tier tribunal should be, and what the time frame and effect of the decision should be. These issues will hopefully be trashed out at UNCITRAL. India's stand. Although India has not made a formal statement on the issue, India presumably support the idea of an appellate review on IADS because Article 29 of the Indian model bit talk of it, given India's concern about the inconsistency and incoherence in the ISDS system. Supporting the creation of an appellate review mechanism will be in India's interest. In any case, India will have to take a stand on this issue as part of the ongoing investment treaty negotiation with the European Union, which is campaigning the creation of an appellate review mechanism for investment disputes. Since India's quest has always been to establish a rule-based global order, it should support an appellate review which will usher in greater confidence for states and investors in international investment law. For those same reasons, India should also push for the restoration of the WTO appellate body towards achieving the goal of a fully and well functioning dispute settlement system at the WTO. Then Afghan consulate counter embassy's decision to shut down. As Afghanistan's last remaining diplomat in Delhi plan their exit, citing a resource crunch and a lack of support from the External Affairs Ministry. The move to shut down the embassy could cast a long shadow on the future of about 25,000 Afghan refugees in India. According to the diplomats, it could also allow the Taliban to take control of the mission in India. However, Afghan consulates in Mumbai and Hyderabad distanced themselves from Delhi missions, note verbally a type of diplomatic communication sent earlier this month with Mumbai Consul General Zakia Wardak issuing a message on social media categorically rejecting the suggestion that the all Afghan mission in India would close in these challenging times. We want to assure all Afghan citizens living in India that the Consulate General of Afghanistan in Mumbai and Hyderabad is your reliable source of assistance for any consular education or commercial matters. Mr. Wardak said in a post that also praised India for its humanitarian support to Afghanistan in the post 2021 period. The economic ties between India and Afghanistan have reached a significant milestone with trade now exceeding $1 billion. We are determined to further enhance these trade relationships, recognizing the mutual benefits they bring to our nation. The post added diplomatic fictions. Given the differences between the Afghan mission in Delhi with the consulates in Hyderabad and Mumbai, as well as an earlier tussle within the embassy as the Taliban tried to appoint a new embassy, Indian government sources say that they will wait and watch the situation even as they examine the authenticity of the note verbal they received. As the Hindu had reported on Friday, the note, which was unsigned but sent on behalf of the Afghan embassy by acting ambassador Musa Niam, informed the ministry that they were unable to continue functioning with their present resources and intended to shut down operations by Saturday. Farid Mumundez, the ambassador to New Delhi appointed by the previous Afghan Ashraf Ghani government, has been in London for several months, and most other diplomats have received an asylum in other countries including US, Canada, Europe and Australia. As President Mr. Niami and the mission's educations attached are the last remaining Afghan diplomats in Delhi. They are expected to leave for Europe while four Indian staffers will remain to take care of the mission. The note had criticized the Ministry for refusing to respond to appeals for support as well as not extending diplomatic visas to diplomats. In particular, it accused the government of changing its position after India reopened its mission in Kabul in June 2022, indicating that it believed New Delhi was softening its position on the Taliban regime that is trying to replace the current diplomat with pro-Taliban appointees continuous threats to their families in Afghanistan by the Taliban coupled with a lack of support from the Indian government have prompted this decision. It is regrettable that India is not extending rightful visa renewal for Afghan diplomats. India's non-membership in the Geneva Convention on Refugees and its stance on asylum for Afghan citizens is a concerning aspect, said an embassy official, who alleged that the Mumbai and Hyderabad consulate had even taken part in a video conference with the Taliban Foreign Ministry Amir Khan Mutaki in July, changing policy. No government has yet recognized in the Taliban as the legitimate authority in Kabul, although at least 15 countries, including India, operate diplomatic mission there. In addition, many like Russia, China, Pakistan, and some Central Asian countries have allowed the Taliban to appoint acting ambassador in their capital, while some have even allowed the black and white flag of the Taliban's Islamic Emirates to replace the red, green, and black tricolor of the previous Islamic Republic. In the note sent to ministry, the embassy had requested that all bank fund be kept in the government custody and that the republic's flag be allowed to fly at the embassy. Then discussed the India-China issue with Blinken, says Jaishankar. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar confirmed that there was a discussion of the India-Canada dispute in his meetings with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Secretary of the State Antonio Blinken. The ministry met with the U.S. cabinet official on September 20 during his visit to Washington, D.C. There has been much interest in the explosive allegations of Canada Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that India was involved with the killing of the Canadian Khalistan separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in British Columbia earlier this year. India has denied any involvement in the killing. Did I speak about it? The row with Canada with Jacques Sullivan And Tony Blinken, yes, I did, he said, speaking at a discussion organized by the Hudson Institute on September 29 morning. Mr. Jaishankar met separately with Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Blinken and noted that he had heard US views and assessments of the India Canada situation. In those discussions, the minister said that he hoped the India and the US sides had come out of these meetings better informed. Secretary Blinken also took the opportunity to urge India to cooperate fully with the ongoing Canadian investigations. A State Department spokesperson told the Hindu on Friday, pointing to the official readout which listed a range of issues that were discussed. To understand the issue, Mr. Jaishankar told the audience at Hudson, one had to appreciate that there had been great frictions since 1980s between India and Canada. Because of Ottawa's very permissive attitude towards terrorists and extremists, they have been given operating space in Canada because of the compulsion of Canadian politics, Mr. Jaishankar said, adding that Canada looked probably very difficult to Americans. He was making the point that interest contribute to perceptions of a country. For India, he said the perception was that Canada had a very toxic combination of organized crime from India, trafficking in people, mixed with censorship. My diplomats are on-safe going to the embassy or the consulates in Canada and publicly intimidated, Mr. Jaishankar said, explaining why he had to temporarily suspend visa operations. Asked for a status report on the India-Canada road, the minister repeated a position he had stated in New York earlier this week, neither categorically confirming or denying that he had been seen evidence of the government's role in Mr. Nizar's killing. Ottawa has insisted that it presented New Delhi with such evidence. The Canadian Prime Minister made some allegation initially privately and then publicly, and our responses to him both in private and public were that what he was alleging was not consistent with our policy. Mr. Jaishankar said, adding that if the Canadian government had anything relevant and specific for India to look at, that is evidence, the government would look at it. That is where the conversation is at this point of time, the minister said. Then next, remembering MS Swaminathan's legacy of ecological conservation. Much has been said and written about the role of MS Swaminathan 1925-2023 in accelerating agricultural growth with the help of science and technology, but his contribution to conservation and environmental protection are no less significant. He worked extensively on four aspects of conservation: mangrove ecosystem, biodiversity conservation, genetic conservation, and Keystone dialogues, which pertained to plant genetic resource and biological diversity. The mangrove ecosystem are capable of surviving in most challenging environment of saline brackish water, low oxygen tension and high temperature. They provide benefit of coastal population, mainly protection against natural events, but they constantly face the threat of destruction from human depredations, in including expansion of coastal aquaculture. It was for this and many other reasons that Swaminathan sought urgent measures to prevent any further destructions of mangrove forests and restore the partially degraded ones. He was particular about maintaining the genetic diversity of the ecosystem of the Indo-Malaysian region, regarded as the center of diversity for mangrove species. According to MS Swaminathan, scientist, humanist, conservationist, a revised and updated biography authored by R.D. Iyer, Anil Kumar and Rohini Iyer, and published by the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation in November 2021, aware of the debate between the proponent of development and those of conservation. Swaminathan wanted every country to achieve harmony between human and animal population and the natural resource endowment. He was acutely aware that unless the livelihood security of people was strengthened, conservation of unique natural endowment could become a lost cause in poor and overpopulated countries. According to his biography, given the concern among developing countries that experiments in biotechnology not permitted in developed countries could take place on their territories, Swaminathan rightly argued for the need for an international protocol on biosafety under the Convention on Biological Diversity, said his biographers. For promoting the theme of conservation agriculture, he formulated an educational program, Every Child a Scientist, to sensitize children to the country's biological heritage and conservation methods. After he was elected president of the International Union for Conservation of Nature (IUCN) in 1984, he emphasized in his personal manifesto that IUCN must change from an Eurocentric to an Earth-centric organization, as much attention should be paid to issue of the poor and hungry as to the saving of pandas and penguins. On the food crisis on Africa, he diagnosed that the continent's plight had less to do with the drought than with the fact that there is a need for widespread reforestation. Then next way, Ruijiang Zhang to receive Shastra Ramanujan Prize. The 2023 Shastra Ramanujan Prize will be awarded in Ruijiang Zhang of the University of California, Berkeley. This annual $10,000 prize is for outstanding contribution by individual in areas of mathematics, included by Indian mathematics great Ramanujan in a broad sense. The prize will be awarded at an international conference in number theory on December 2022 at Shastra University in Kumbakulam, Ramanujan's hometown. Mr. Zhang received his B.S. degree in mathematics from Peking University in 2012 and his PhD in mathematics at Princeton University in 2017. After working at the Institute for Advanced Study, Princeton, and University of Wisconsin since 2021, he has been an assistant professor at University of California, Berkeley. His fundamental work spans analytic the number theory, combinatorics, Euclidean harmonic analysis, and geometry. Building on his doctoral thesis, he and Xiaoming Gu proved a generalization of the main conjecture in Vinogradov's means value theorem, which is concerned with the sums of numbers raised into a certain power. Then next जो है hot dry August lift core sector growth to a 14-month high. Output at the 8 core infrastructure sector rose by a combined 12.1% in August, the fastest pace in 14 months, with 5 reporting double-digit growth, spurring hopes of a healthy uptick in industrial production last month. This was the second straight month that all 8 sectors, which constitute about 40% of the index of the industrial production (IIP), recorded an uptick after a 14-month streak of uneven trend. Provisional core sector output measured by the Index of Core Industries (ICI) rose 2.5% over July's level, the fast uptick in 3 months. The core sector collectively grew 8.4% in July when IIP growth hit a 5-month high of 5.7%. Cement output grew 18.9 months, the largest uptick since November 2022. Deficient rains also lifted coal production and electricity generation, which grew 17.9% and 14.9% respectively, their fastest rates of expansion in 14 months. A truant monsoon helped to push up core sector growth to a robust 12.1% in August 2023, said Aditi Nair, chief economist at rating from firm ICRA. Given the uptick in the core sector growth as well as healthy performance of high frequency indicator such as auto output, GST, e-way bill, rail freight, etc., we forecast the IIP to expand by 9% to 11% in August. See reckoned. Steel productions rose 10.9%, the slowest pace in a 10-month streak of double-digit growth, while natural gas output grew 10%, the most since February 2022. Refinery products expanded by 9.5%, also the highest pace in 14 months. Crude oil output grew 2.1% for second successive month after a con- contractionary streak between May 2022 and June 2023. However, output level over 0.6% below July. Coal and steel were the other sectors to record a sequential decline, dropping 1.5% and 0.8% respectively. Fertilizers was the only sector to record the slowest growth in the at least a year, rising 1.8% in August. While higher cement production reflects demand from infrastructure sector, power generation saw a massive and unusual growth in August due to a severe rainfall deficiency in large parts and the consequent higher power demand from the residential and agriculture segments, said Suman Chaudhary, chief economist at Equity Rating and Research. Recovery broad-based. The numbers suggest the recovery in infrastructure industries is getting broad-based. India rating economist Paras Jasrai and Sunil Kumar Sinha observed they see core output growing by about 8% in September owing to stable progress in economic activity supported by the festive demand. Then last article a fiscal deficit hit 36% of financial year target in August. India's fiscal deficit for the first 5 months of the financial year was 6.43 lakh crore, 36% of the estimate for the whole year. Official data showed on Friday, April-August net tax revenues were 8.04 lakh crore or 34.5% of the annual estimate, higher than 7 lakh crore rupees in the same period last year. According to the data, corporate tax collection rose more than 15% to 2.3 lakh crore rupees in April-August. The data showed total expenditure in period was 16.72 lakh crore or 37.1% of the annual goal, higher than the 13.90 lakh crore rupees in the same period last year. In the first 5 months of the financial year, government capital expenditure or spending on building infrastructure was 3.74 lakh crore rupees or 37.4% of annual target, higher than 2.52 lakh crore rupees in the same period a year earlier. India aims to narrow its fiscal deficit to 5.9% of the GDP in the current fiscal year. So friends, this is all for today and we will continue from tomorrow onwards with new The Hindu news articles. So thank you all. Thanks a lot.